Always my brother, always my brother. How was everybody tonight? So good to see everybody. So let's get started, shall we? Wanted to do a quick shout out to all the Ramblers, and Brett and I like to explain, to people that aren't familiar with what the Ramblers of the Round Table are. We are a group of people that have come together. We made it the round table because everybody's equal here. Your opinions are equal, and we like to have equal talks. And it's just, a place where you belong, where everybody belongs. But I like to always start out with a joke, bro. So here's your joke. You ready for your joke? All right. So why do dragons sleep during the daytime? Because they're scared of the nights.
That was Scotty, man. I love you and your blooming dad jokes, I tell you. I love it. Just want to say hello to Kenny. Kevin's here as well, my boy. Kevin and I met in Glastonbury at the Portal to Ascension conference, and man, yeah, this guy's a beautiful being. So hello. Oh, and Akashic Records. Elise is here as well, which I also met there. Oh, Jackie. Come on. It ain't working, Scotty. My heart ain't working.
So yeah, we got a first question. And our first question is, what is the most fascinating thing you've discovered about dragons in your research? And mine was kind of, the most fascinating, I would like to think, was all the different species of dragons. I mean, we have so many different species of dragons, from little to big to mean to good. I mean, there's so many different, and then the cultures too. There's so many different cultures that speak of it too. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that really intrigued me actually when I went deep into it, is that basically every civilization, every continent, bar Antarctica, which doesn't mean it isn't there, they just haven't told us. Every continent, this goes way back. But though you said that, so I'd probably say it was the connection with water, sacred springs, energy centers, and bodies of water. I mean, all of the ancient stories, they speak about the dragons more connected with the water, these energy centers. So I found that just fascinating. And that even goes into the more, I say modern, but from the ancient stories to the more sort of European stories. Even then, even the King Arthur story spoke of when Merlin was called to this certain king, and there was two dragons. They fought that every day. They were building their temple, building their castle, and the walls would fall down. And they called Merlin there, and he was told by his sages to use the blood of a being not born of earth, which was Merlin. We've spoke about this on the myths. If anyone's interested in that, we've gone into a bit more detail on that. But even under there was two dragons in a lake. So there seems to be a great connection with water, ley lines, dragon lines, energy centers, and bodies of water. So I found that just fascinating. And I mean, I've experienced the dragon energy, as some people well know. Like the last 7 months, man, it was a new experience for me. It wasn't something I didn't believe in, but through meditation, man, I've seen like a golden dragon over and over again. And even in my pilgrimage to Glastonbury, I had random people coming up to me, man, in the street, just talking about the golden dragon. So this was a very good one for me, because I've actually gone, anyone that knows me, I've always been a little bit of that conspiracy theorist. I love the rabbit holes, so I've been deep down the rabbit holes of dragons. And actually, I was just fascinated to how, like you said, how every single culture, every single continent has stories of dragons. And a lot of the ancient ones, especially the Eastern stories, China, Japan, Australia's stories, they've seemed very benevolent, wise, powerful, beautiful beings. And it seems to hit a point, especially starting from ancient Greek and onwards, especially in the Western world, they were more beast-like and more malevolent. So, that would be my probably, I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. And speaking of the water, that's a good point to get into about dragons. Now, a lot of dragons, you have land-based dragons, of course, but so many cultures talked about, and through my Native American side, both sides of my mother's side is the Sioux, and my father's side was Cree, and both sides both had the same serpent that had a dragon's head, and so it was a horned serpent, is what they had called it. And what that horned serpent did was it protected water, and it protected healing water. The Sioux actually had a name for it, and it was the Chai Tonka, and that meant elder brother. And an elder brother, it actually meant for respect and strength. And the biggest part that I really loved about that was that it's a connectiveness of nature. So it connected nature with the elements, it connected everything. And so water plays such a big aspect for dragons and serpents and all cultures. And even in China, like you said, China had the water serpent, and they called that one, it was a master of rainfall, it was a master of waterfalls, it was a master of lakes. So it was a master of water. And then they also had one, and I got this one for you. They also had one called the Shin. Now the Shin was a dragon that would shapeshift. Now this dragon was rarely ever seen, and the times that it was seen, it was said to be a golden dragon with green scales, but it was rarely seen. And when it was seen, it came in the form of this huge ball of snake, just huge, this huge reptile. And but they said that it would be able to be a pheasant, and this is the way it would come to most people because it tried to hide itself, and it was a very magical creature. And then it would come in the form of a pearl or in a heart-shaped crab. So a dragon that was very, a trickster. It wanted to hide itself. So what do you think about that? About the golden dragon?
Yeah, I mean the Chinese and the Eastern stories of dragons, they were very benevolent, very wise, and almost divine beings. They were classed as, and they were, when the farmers would see them, they was classed as he would have a great harvest, a great crop. And like you say, it was all to do with the water and the rainfall. And then the golden dragon actually showed itself to one of the emperors. Though I can't, though his name wasn't a name I'm used to, so I can't recall it at the moment. But that's to do with the bloodline of China, this golden dragon, and yeah, I mean, it's like the further you go back, they seem to explain a lot of the texts translate to serpent, and it seems to be a lot of the ancient speaks of dragons were these serpent beings, and quite often they didn't even have wings. So, and I know the carp scales quite often were described to have different, almost like hybrids. So they would have the paws of a lion or an eagle. They could have like carp scales, things like this. But there's definitely some sort of serpent connection there. And the further you look back, that's how you see all dragons are almost explained as serpents. And though some of them could fly, they seem to fly with their own abilities. So, yeah, I mean, the Chinese stories of it are very interesting. And of course, Australia as well, they have the rainbow serpent, which you can find on the rock art of Australia, which your mainstream scientists would say the rock art's around 6,000 years old, which, is a few times ago. But they don't really know that. That's just what they perceive of the people there. But the serpent, the rainbow serpent, again in Australia, was a very benevolent, loving being. It lived in sacred springs. It would travel through the springs and water underneath, which in some cultures we call as dragon lines. You have ley lines, which you have the natural body of the planet, and you have basically the geometry of the planet from the equator north to west, and then you fill in the gaps, and these energy centers place to build on. But also you have natural ley lines, which are to do with the flow of water, the flow of materials, and these dragon lines. And they call them dragon lines again because they seem to move like serpents, where the sacred geometry lines are perfectly straight and they meet up, where the dragon lines, they move. And it seems to be a huge thing in all these ancient cultures that they seem to have something to do with water, especially sacred springs. And I would imagine personally from what I kind of vibe from that, what I resonated with that would be, it's probably energy centers, So these are the veil is thinner at these energy centers. Hence, as many of us know, the pyramids, ancient temples, stone circles, even churches through the Roman Catholic time are built on top of these energy centers. And yeah, I mean, it does seem that they were very, very benevolent, loving, wise creatures at some point through the longer history. Even Sumerian texts speak about dragons, actually. This is how far it goes back. And it was Tiamat, which was one of the goddesses. And I can't remember the story straight off the top of my head, but she was having a battle with as the gods do, and their children, and she birthed 11 children, 2 of which were depicted and spoke exactly as dragons. And actually, you don't see many pictures of her, but you see her written in the texts. But the depictions you do see, she basically was the dragon, which might represent she was the mother of dragons. So dragons go all the way back. And I mean, we've got to kind of talk about the elephant in the room, which of course is dinosaurs. I mean, we know that dinosaurs, all the bones of dinosaurs certainly exist, though there's been different theories of what they look like on the outside, so this grey kind of reptilian skin. But quite often, a lot of people now are starting to think that they might have been feathered, feathered serpents, which again is huge. We've got the Mayans, the Aztec, all spoke of, I can't remember, what's his name, Scotty? Quetzalcoatl or something, man. I can't say these names, man. But they had a serpent god as well, which was a feathered serpent. So yeah, this certainly seems to go back in every single continent, from the natives to the Aborigines, to the Chinese, to the Japanese. And of course, in the European times, it starts to shift a bit. Then suddenly they're not these benevolent, loving, wise beings. They seem to be almost beast-like. And it's quite often the same stories are told all over, from Iceland to the UK to Scotland to all through Europe and the West, is that then suddenly it seemed to be the heroes to fight the dragons, to slay the dragons. And quite often the dragons are portrayed as being in areas where they are taking the livestock, they are given livestock to them as sacrifice. And quite often, like the story of St. George and the dragon, goes back to a little village that was being plagued by this dragon. They were feeding it livestock to start with. The livestock started to go, and then they were giving it livestock and the human beings, the children, and they used to do like a pool. And one day, one of the king's daughter got chosen to be pulled as the sacrifice, and the king tried to buy his way out of this. It wouldn't happen, but St. George went there with them. And then he slayed the dragon, and this is the Christian story. And then the whole village turned Christian, and he married the princess. So there seems to be, sort of different stories about that. And have you got any theories of why they were so benevolent at a certain point, and then they certainly seem to turn very malevolent or beast-like? I'd like to put that to you. That's a question for you, Scotty.
Yeah, I was going to back up a little bit to the water still. On the water, I was going to do, the waters were very healing. And I got a question for you on the healing water too in a second here. But the healing water, I wanted to give a shout out too to anybody that doesn't know about Emery Smith and Darla Smith. They actually do healing waters. And I got a little bit right here. Here's some nano green. Here's a shout out to you guys. I wanted to make sure that I got my shout out to you guys on that. You guys can go look at Cosmic Disclosure Alliance, and you'll find their products and so forth over there too. So you want to get that healing water. And my other thing about the healing water that I wanted to throw at you too was you guys over there in Scotland have Nessie. They called her a water dragon. And so over there, you also have healing waters as well. And you've been on a couple of trips just recently. What I wanted to get to about the healing waters is you actually went and visited places that talked about healing waters. And these serpents are known to protect these healing waters. Well, Brett's actually been to these healing waters, and he'll tell you about it right now. Tell us about those healing waters you went to.
Well, water is this beautiful substance in the universe, which our planet is full of. Yeah, cheers, brother. And water, I say this all the time, but water in a sense is very close to source. It holds a lot of information, data, and I always speak of the snowflake effect, man. The droplet of water, with the process of freezing, every single droplet will fracture into what we call a snowflake, which is fractal. You might find certain resonance in the snowflakes, but no two are the same. And that shows the information and data held in water. And also, we are 70%, 40 to 70% water. We are mostly bags of water ourselves. And that's where the DNA and the information comes in. So yeah, waters can certainly be healing. And, I went to the Chalice Well, the Red Chalice Well, which is the Red Springs in Glastonbury, or the land of Avalon, which it was once called. And yeah, these waters are said to be healing, as much water is. And we've all heard of the the healing spring. Scott, help me out here. I've lost my thought. Oh man, help me out.
The Whitewater Springs.
No, the ancient story of the water that would make you young. Man, I've totally lost my thought. I wasn't on this.
The Fountain of Youth.
The Fountain of Youth. We've all heard of the fucking. How do I forget that? but I wasn't really on that. I've been totally, my mind's been all about dragons. So the fountain of youth, so we've had this healing property of water. And like you say, water can contain and store a lot of data and information. And you can do this through light frequency, sending light through it, sound waves, sound frequency you can store, and of course the minerals added in water. And it amazes me how many dragon legends, and I would say most of them, they dwell in a place of sacred springs, sacred water, because you get these different ley lines. So you get the geometry ley lines, but you also get under the earth. There's 3 times more water inside the earth than there is in all the oceans and rivers. I mean, people just sort of overlook that, but that is mind blowing when you think about that. So these waters are moving around the whole planet. It's been going in through the top. It's being recycled. But this is also creating electricity, energy lines, ley lines, and power. And where these places meet up, like Glastonbury is a prime example. That is the heart chakra of the planet. And one of the reasons that it's on this perfect on the sphere ley line, but it has 7 springs that all cross, and where they cross is at the Abbey, and these waters are said to be healing. And it's not just a folklore. I mean, there's people that in modern times have gone to these waters, drunk the red water springs, and they had cancer, leukemia, and it has just disappeared. So yeah, water certainly is a powerful thing, and we are mostly bags of water. The information that can be stored in water, the data. Atlantis is another prime example of this. One of the main cities of Atlantis we hear about is the rings of water, and that would come in and out, and they would store data and information through that. They would harness the energy of it flowing in, the energy that water can create through movement. But also what you get added in water in different places is minerals, gold, all these substances, little bits of crystal. And when these are moving under the earth, they create energy or electronic lines, and this can be measured. And quite often stone circles in Scotland, everyone knows I'm big into that. They can take these measurements, they can measure the frequencies there, and they can measure the electric magnetic fields at these places. And there's more than one story of when people have been there and they've been measuring this, and they've seen a bolt of lightning hit like a center stone, and all the stones, this is incredible, and that shows the energy that's stored within inside of the earth. And yeah, I mean, it seems to be that the dragons, for sure, they always were at these bodies of water or these energy centers. Why? Is this a place where the veil's thinner because of the frequency in the field and the portals and the vortex is being created in these special centers that it's easier to come through? And the dragons would probably be classed these days as elemental beings. Elemental beings can live on light, water, fire, and earth. There's different types. Though the dragons seem to resonate at all of them. They even metal. Oh, there you go. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm rambling there, but that's my kind of view on that.
No, that's beautiful. That's perfect. Yeah, there's there's so many different cultures that talk about the elements and how they connect with dragons. So no, that's perfect. And wanted to give a shout out to all the ramblers that are here so far too. Rosemary, Amber, Sharon, Luna, Naomi, Akashic Records with Ellis, Zara, Cameron, Annie. Thank you. Awesome. And then Annie had a question too. Who birthed the dragons? That's a good question. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked into that. Do you know anything on that, bro?
Well, there's a Sumerian texts, Mesopotamia, whatever it's called. So they speak of Tiamat, who birthed the first dragons, and she was having some kind of. I've been deep into the Sumerian texts in my research over the years, but not so much now. But that's something that I did that's one of the things I knew about dragons, that she was having some kind of battle with her older children of the gods to do with the Sumerian texts, and Enki imprisoned some of them, so they went to war, and then she birthed, I think it was 11 children, and some of them were the first records of the births of dragons. So that's how far this stuff goes back. But I would personally say, there's dragons all over the place. There's certainly, we know it's a fractal universe. So, there's probably human beings placed around or very similar from ape species that have evolved. And it's very fractal, it's like the greys, we know about the non-biologics that got rid of their body, transferred their consciousness into fiber bodies, merged with AI, but also there's a whole line, a bloodline of different grey species that are biological. So I imagine the dragons probably act into this fractal nature. So there may even be a realm of the dragons, and this is something maybe we could talk about, There are different fields, different densities. It's all to do with vibrational states. So the higher vibrational states, and you can go into different densities. We are, of course, on the Earth experiencing the third density, but there seems to be densities higher than us, and even densities going into the Earth, which I know our great friend and colleague Emery Smith knows a lot about. Is about what's going on. And I would say inside the Earth, man, there's probably more crazy stuff going on in there than on the surface of other planets, because these are closed off systems that have evolved completely separate, But I would say that they probably are some kind of species, some kind of being. They probably are on some kind of different dimension. It's like people talk in Scotland. The big thing is about the Fae or the fairies. They are also they have fairy lines, and there's a wonderful story actually. I know this is kind of off topic, but it's just come to mind. Is they were building roads in Ireland back in the day, and they were building this road, and they were putting these certain poles in, like poles to do, and every morning they come back and the pole was thrown out, and it turns out it was built on one of these fairy lines. And in the end, even now to the day, you drive the road and you have to drive around this certain energy center. So, a lot of it could be to do with the energy centers where they meet up. And that seems to make the reality thinner. That's why they built the temples, the churches. The Catholic Church is a prime example of what they call the installation, the matrix, is they built on top of these energy centers. And they've done that for two reasons. One was to harness the energy, and they would bring people in, speak Latin, bring the energy in, harness the energy. But also they would shut off the energy. So they'd build on top of these places to shut off the energy centers, which again might explain why the dragons on this dark age, they kind of went into a malevolent beast-like creature. One might have been literally, as the solar system, we all go through cycles, and I speak about this a lot, but the sun goes through cycles, the planets, the moons, the human bodies, the seasons, but even our solar system is traveling around, going towards the galactic center. It's going through cycles, and on these cycles, certain energy centers in the universe add up, where it's higher energetic frequencies naturally resonate higher, but we also go to these dips, which are called dark ages. And in the dark ages, vibrations resonate slower. So this might have been why it suddenly seemed that the dragons were these benevolent, loving beings, and then they changed into these beast-like creatures. But part of that might have been that the human beings were building on top of these energy centers, on these sacred sites that the dragons were protecting, with the lower frequency, or the frequency vibrating naturally lower. That changed the human consciousness for sure. So we went from these gold ages, which we know of the Mayans, Aztec, Egyptians, and of course Atlantis, and we went down into a dark age. And that affects the whole consciousness, probably including the dragons. So that might have been why they're beast-like. So I kind of went off point there, but I thought that was something cool.
Yeah, it's really cool, all the different species too. And hey, Glenn, thanks for joining us, brother. What's up, Junior? Good to see you guys in here too. And yeah, it's very fascinating too. Throughout all the cultures, there was so many different types of dragons. I mean, you had big dragons, and not too many people know about they had little dragons, and the little dragon was called the dragonette.
And the dragonette was as small as a finger. So crazy. It could be as big as a finger or as big as a human. This is so crazy and precious.
But they weren't so precious because they were known to hunt in packs. And the thing that was kind of scary about them also, besides hunting in a pack, a pack of dragons chasing you, that's pretty scary itself. But their venom was actually their blood, and their blood was very toxic, which made it poisonous. So they would hunt in packs. So it was known that if you were out in the woods alone, that these small dragons, whether it was human size or whether it was
so small,
either way, you have 20 of these things coming after you. I mean, that's a different kind of species. That's a different kind of dragon all about it. We didn't hear about. Now, you didn't hear about this dragon. Next thing you know, you have all these little flying dragons coming at you. That's kind of something too. So, and then you have the Hydra. I mean, then you go to a huge Hydra. This beast had 3 heads, and one head was the strongest head. And the only way that the head could be chopped off and the Hydra could actually be killed was through Hercules had a golden sword. Now, Hercules first tried, and the way that he had found out that he had to kill the main head was he would slice off one of the heads and 2 heads would grow back. And then next thing you know, all of a sudden it has 5 heads. And next thing you know, he's like, how do I kill this dragon? So the story was told that he ended up having to chop off the main head. So you go from small dragons to huge dragons with several heads. You go from dragons that were lizard-like. You go to dragons that had two legs in the front, and they would use them and they would slither across the ground, but they were dragons. They had a dragon head. I mean, all of these are so fascinating. And like you were talking about too, the dragon realm. Now, the only like research that was ever, that I could ever find on the realm was they said that there's the Draco star system. Now, the Draco star system is said where they go, I guess when they passed, and that was where they resonated to. And then the other spot was, in between Earth and that was where the dragon realm kind of is. And so I believe, through the dark times, medieval times, it started getting thicker because there was always scary dragons, scary dragons, scary dragons. And then so the belief just became dark and nobody wanted to talk about it. And now we're, years and years and years away from all that, and it's been thinning. People are talking about dragons. People are not having scary dragon experiences. People are having more benevolent experiences with dragons, and more people are talking about it. So I think that veil from our side is thinning it. At the same time, the dragons are trying to come through and let us know, hey, we have wisdom, we have strength, we have healing to teach you guys. So, I find all those very interesting too. And then, did you have a question? Why did the dragon go to the party? Because it was a blazing good time. That was good. That was out of left field. She got me. I thought it was a question. It was a joke.
So here's a question.
So here's the question at hand, and you got me there. What is the historical signification of dragons on ancient cultures, and why are their energies manifesting on Earth during this time of spiritual shift and awakening?
Well, you certainly explained one side of that, and there's always this little saying that many of us spiritual beings will know is "as above, so below." And I would say there certainly could be this resonant field or this frequential density, because it is fields, man, and fields overlap. And it's like tuning into a radio, man. We're tuned into the Earth experience. But as we meditate and then these new energies are coming into Earth, certain people's frequencies are changing and we're in tuning to that. But also, I would like to say that actually ley lines, and especially the natural ley lines, the water ley lines and these minerals that are being taken around the planet are affected by two things. One is high energetic sectors of space, which we have entered. We've been entering since probably before 2019, and we're heading up to this higher energetic sector. And we can see the evidence of that just by looking at the sun, how the sun's been reacting lately. And in the UK, man, we've been having auroras around. There's people saying it's HARP. Though I would say it's more likely that they're causing tornadoes than they are causing the nice lights in the sky. But we can see the sun reacting. And another thing that energizes these energy centers in the Earth is the sun. So not only is the planet heading into this more denser energy, which is naturally making frequencies and vibrations and fields and things swell more, but that's affecting the sun. The sun affects the consciousness of Earth. So I would say that part of the reason might be that we are hitting these energy centers are being more energized, the veil's becoming thinner, and it's almost like we're shifting up to a higher density of reality. Many people call this 5D or the fifth dimension or the fifth density. I would say we're more heading into the fourth density. That's kind of how I perceive it. I certainly don't want to skip a density. We're infinite beings. Let's not rush. Let's have some fun in the fourth density. But it does seem that the sun and this energetic sector, you got to think that we're made to think that the sun's here, the planets are going around like that. We really need to flip that. And actually, the planets are falling around the mass of the sun, and the sun is taking its own cycle around the galactic center, and it's getting closer. And there's ley lines in galaxies and solar systems also create these energy lines. And we are hitting into one of these energy lines, and we have been for a while, which is to do with this great awakening, the rising in consciousness, and the awareness that's coming to Earth at this precise moment. And I would say evidence of that is to see. I was told this a few years ago, and now I'm watching this sun giving off, and it's between 2025, 2026. We're going to hit the solar maximums. We haven't even reached the most energetic point of this yet. But I think then these energies, radiation, the fact that we're heading into the more denser thing is actually activating the energy lines of Earth and the ley lines. And I believe that would make sense, And of course, with the consciousness can affect this, and it affects the consciousness. That's a paradox. But I would believe that that is why not just, you know, not just dragons and stuff are coming through. They certainly are, but many people are having more encounters with different species. And the mantis beings are coming through. The Lyran, the Umar, all these kind of people are having these interactions and moments with beings because we're heading into a special point on Earth. And I'd say good times are ahead, you know. So I would think that might be part of the reason, is that, you know, the sun, certainly we are in a solar system. The sun is the giver of consciousness. The Egyptians, Mayans, Aztecs, the Sumerians, all these civilizations understood this, that the sun is the consciousness giver, especially in the universe created of light. You know, a lot of people say it's a hologram. It kind of is a hologram. Everything gives off photons of light. And of course, we have the visible light to think about. Like humans, we only see a tiny spectrum. We only hear a tiny spectrum, when actually there's a full spectrum out there. If we could tune into these full spectrums, man, I imagine there's a lot going on, and there's realities overlapping, there's densities, we have wave patterns, we have particles, but we have fields, information fields and densities, and we're heading to a point where these are overlapping, and the energy created from the sun and the sector we're moving into, this great shift that's happening to humanity, is affecting the consciousness on Earth, but also these areas, especially these energy centers where the veil was thin, where it's thin areas where they built these stone circles, they built these temples, and of course the Roman Catholic Church built them on these areas. They knew what they were building them on, and now these are getting activated, which is allowing certain people that are tuned into a higher vibration or higher frequency state or resonant field. People are starting to experience these beings, even Bigfoot, man. I mean, on one of our lives, of my friend Ben, you know, he was saying, man, why is the Bigfoot coming through? Is this to do with that? And I would say this is 100% relevant, you know, relative.
Yeah, Glenn had a good comment that he threw in over here. Glenn says, the dragon energy has always been here, and many entity beings are being noticed. So
yeah, I
that's
would 100% agree with that. And yes, you know, it seems to go all the way back. We can see that in every continent, every country. And it seems to be a part, and like you say, part of this might have been when we hit this lower frequency where it wasn't so much seen. It might have to do with the self-limiting beliefs that have been in place onto us and our mental gravitational fields, where this can't exist, this don't exist. But I would 100% agree with Glenn. They've always been here. They've always been a part of Earth and the Earth realm. And there were certain times we can tell, you know, that there was a much more open kind of contact on Earth. It seems to have been closed off for a time. But I would say, yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah, bang on, Glenn. Love that, boy.
Yeah, and Glenn just put a comment in about Bigfoot is a fourth dimensional being that is in our root of human existence. Yeah, Native Americans, a lot of tribes had talked about how there was a Bigfoot and he was out there in the forest protecting the forest. So yeah, that is a good topic too, and that's a good one. And there's you know, like we were saying, there's so many different you know, dragon species and so forth, and so there'd be you imagine there'd be so many other species of different things like Bigfoot, and then how will human relationship with dragons evolve in the up and coming times? What can we expect from this new connection?
Well, you know, that would entirely depend on each unique frequency and how you embrace that. You know, we're going for huge things going on Earth, and a lot of information and data and DNA has been in place, and we kind of get to choose how we move on. So I personally would welcome them back. You know, I've certainly welcomed them in a time of more open contact and more experiences with these beings, and it would depend on the person. If someone is so closed off and so shut off that they don't want to see it, then that's probably the reality they will have. But if a group of consciousness, like I know the dragon energy is back with a vengeance, and certainly so many people are connecting and tuning into that, and it's up to us. You know, this is one of the things that we are observing, but also co-creating the reality. That's one of the most beautiful paradoxes I love about this existence. And that would totally be up to how we go along with that, you know, and what we create. And I would say personally, I certainly open up for that experience. I've experienced the golden dragon many times. I know you've experienced the red dragon. I know your beautiful wife has experienced that lovely white dragon. And I know I've met, everywhere I've gone, I've met people that are just in tune to this dragon energy and dragon frequency. So I'd imagine that some part of the consciousness definitely is opened up to that. And even at the All Shifts Happening Now conference, man, you know, my Iceland girls, you know, they were channeling the dragon and the dragon language, and they are totally connected to it. So though I'd say it's up to you, man, you know, and when things move on, it's a very fractal universe. There's many different types of beings, and that might be an energetic or frequency thing. It may be in these beautiful bodies with DNA added that might connect you to certain things, but different people will connect to different things, you know, like the Christians, they will certainly connect to Jesus and the light beings, you know, and they are, you know, high frequentials, as they're also known. And some people might attract to the greys, the Lyrans, or even the reptilians. You know, it's a very unique process as we move in, but I certainly welcome a time when certain people, I feel, being prepared for up and coming event that could be coming in the next couple of years at the most. And at that point, then different people may meet different beings, and dragons would be amongst them. Even the fairies, man, a lot of people connecting to them right now, a lot of the elemental beings. And, you know, I love what Glenn said about Bigfoot and the Sasquatch. It totally resonates with me. Like, they are interdimensional beings, and they certainly connect with nature. You're less likely to bump into a Sasquatch, and I said this on one of our lives in Disneyland, but if you're walking in these special areas like Mount Saskia and places like this, you're certainly more likely to find them there. And if you connect with nature and love, then you might meet these beings, and I know a lot of people are at the moment. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Sky.
Yeah, I totally believe sacred sites. Yeah, you go to these sacred sites and you're definitely going to have connections. Like we talked about, you went to these places that had healing water. I mean, you know, that comes right out of the ground. I mean, these are places that have known that dragons and serpents had protected. And, you know, a lot of like the American, Native American tribes believe that if you brought your offering, let's say your loved one was sick and you really needed that water, so you would go and you'd give an offering. You wouldn't just go there and try stealing the water, because it's sacred. Like you said, these are sacred places, sacred waters. That's why they do call them sacred places. And, you know, we had a question that it came in too. What is your dragon story? Well, my dragon story, actually, I see, if nobody knows, I've actually seen a red dragon. And my red dragon came to me actually when I was younger. I actually felt it. I didn't know back then what it meant. Throughout life, you know, it's always been something that's always been in my mind, and you always think, oh, you know, that's woo woo. You know, you're not really supposed to think of dragons. You're not. There's no dragon. You don't have dragon energy that way. Well, I've always felt it, and I've always felt it in a protective way. I've always been very protective, but I've always been very loving and very healing too. And I think that you know, the dragon veil thinning. I think a lot of us, this dragon wisdom, because, you know, dragons are ancient. They had a lot of wisdom. I think that's coming down to a lot of us. And I think the more and more people that are open to this, I think it's, you know, lowering that veil. And then people that are aware of their dragons are getting it more through. Like, I'm getting more and more kind of messages. I mean, I know that you've seen your dragon. I've seen my dragon, and we were face to face. And I remember it was a huge face in my vision. It was just this huge, huge face. And I wasn't scared. My first question was, where do I hug you? You know, I was trying to get in for a hug. I just wanted to hug the big guy. You know, I wanted to be connected and bonded. Yeah, I did not feel any fear. You know, there was no fear associated with my dragons. And I know some people do have that fear. And what if I let a dragon in and it is, you know, malevolent? It's not good, you know? Well, you need to set that tone and energy before you ever call upon your dragon, because you don't want that. And, you know, Jackie has really helped a lot of people with finding their dragon. And she's done it in a really good way too, that I wanted to tell everybody about how Jackie kind of helps people find their dragon. And, you know, we both have seen it, and I'm like Brett, certain people see it in a vision. Some people can do it in meditation. But then other people, if you just still like, we hear, you know, I'm not good at meditating, that's okay too. So first thing Jackie likes to tell people is, you know, what element do you connect with? Okay, so you might be fire, water, wind, earth, metal, like you said. There's all these different elements. And then the other thing is, look at your zodiac sign. What is your zodiac sign too? You know, the stars tell you a lot too. But then you just start feeling around, and then you call in goodness. You don't want to call in, some scary one like we talked about, some of these cultures talked about feeding the dragon, and then next thing you know, they ran out of sheep, so they started feeding them their people. I mean, and like a lot of people don't know, like Africa I read about is, was a very trippy one because they would roll dice. You roll some dice and then you get picked. I mean, oh man, one day you could be eating dinner and be like, yeah, you just got back from work. Hey, honey, I got back from work. Can I get a beer? Nah, you got your dice are called. You got to go. Oh man. So yeah,
One
a
day
lot
you're
of.
eating dinner, the next day you are dinner. I just want to give a little shout out to a couple of people who have joined us. Angela, hello, darling. She's from Hampshire, where I used to live, so that's cool. Of course, my brother Kevin from London, man. How you doing, boy? Glad to have you here, man. And of course, Chris from Germany, mate. How are you? So, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're spot on. I would say another way, maybe you want to connect to elementals or dragons or these kind of beings would swell. We've talked about water and sacred water sites, so that might be a good place to start. And certainly these energy centers. I've gone to stone circles, I've meditated, I've had some incredible experiences there. So my experience with dragons actually is very new. It's like I said, it's not something I didn't believe in, but it's something I hadn't experienced. And we're probably looking around 7 months, something like that now. I do meditate a lot. I love my meditation. I do different types of meditation. One of the meditations I love is breath work. I love to do long breath work, 45 minutes. And what I do with that, I shut off the mind and I go into the breath and I create my energy and I activate my energetic body. But also I switch off my mind and I totally follow the breath. In and out, in and out. I might do it for 45 minutes, and that changes your brain waves. That also activates your energetic body, which then it's easier to connect to your field, because we all have these toric fields, which is even spoken about in mainstream. It's, you could say, it's an information field, it's an energy field, it's a mental gravitational field, which is your thoughts. And quite often before I meditate, I'll put out, I love it, and I know other people have done this, and you open your heart with love, and I say I'm open for contact with benevolent, loving beings. I welcome you to share this experience with me. Come and join me. I love to meet and communicate with you. And one of the times I've done this, I've had many results with many different beings, but we can talk about it on other ones. But one time a golden dragon come in, and I see this golden dragon, and it was the most magnificent, and it almost felt like that dragon was me. This might sound totally mad now, but it felt like that kind of was me, or like, the people speak of the higher self, or we are interdimensional beings, in the sense that from our soul experience, we could be having different experiences. It felt like I was this, and I felt very loving and kind to this being. I felt love.
I felt the exact same thing.
Well, there you go. So I'm not, we'll be crazy together then, brother. And so that was the experience I had, and it come up to me and it put its head on me, and I felt this golden energy and this golden light. And even when I was in Glastonbury, obviously, I was just walking down. Glastonbury's a mad place, by the way. If you haven't been there, go there. So for people like us, it's like, oh, this is awesome. It reminds me kind of, I'm jumping off a bit, but it reminds me of like the 60s mixed with Garden Alley off Harry Potter. So it's like Harry Potter in the 60s. That's kind of the vibe there, But I was walking down the street one day and I met so many powerful beings. Some of them might be here on the call now, actually, which is beautiful. And this one guy comes up to me and he goes, "This might sound crazy." And I'm like, "You're in good company, my friend." When you say this might sound crazy, you're in good company. I was like, "Go on." So, share it, man. I'm intrigued. And he started saying, "I've got a message from the Golden Dragon." He said, "The Golden Dragon is watching over you. The Golden Dragon represents the Christ consciousness that is coming into Earth at the moment. The part of this shift is a lot of people believe that Christ is coming back in physical form, but actually it's the consciousness and teachings and the lessons of Jesus through Christ consciousness is one way you can perceive what's happening now." And this, I'd never met this guy. This guy wasn't part of the conference. He was just some random, and you get that in Glastonbury. But random. I was sat with this guy called Tim talking about UFO experiences. Nothing to do with, because it's random. Because it's the heart chakra, and that does activate. So that just blew me away. That I went there, and this guy comes in, and once he said the gold dragon, and he had these crystal dragons. He's beautiful, and he put them to my heart chakra. And man, the energy, I had to take it away. It was that powerful, Scotty. But I mean, so yeah, for me, it's very new sort of experience. It wasn't something I don't have a closed mind. I'm open, man. I'll talk about unicorns. I'll talk about Sasquatches and fairies. I'll talk about giants, ETs. You know, I'm open to it all because it's a big universe. But I'd never actually experienced it for the last 7 months. And then everywhere I went, and people just randomly messaging me and talking to me. Yourself and Jackie would be included in that. But many other people have all experienced this dragon energy returning. And I know, like the Chinese, it's one of the Chinese year of the dragon, I believe, which again might affect it, you know, which might affect the consciousness. It might be an alignment thing. So when, you know, they used to do these stone circles of temples, and they were like computers, and there were many functions. One was like a computer, they could calculate stars and where certain energies, certain things might come through. So it might be something to do with that. But also, when people know it's the year of the dragon, then you've got the consciousness effect, the 100 monkey effect, where so many people know it's the year of the dragon. This also could lower the veil, you know.
So we had another question that, you know, came in too. What is the one thing you treasure the most about your dragons? And, you know, I'll start with mine. You know, I really treasure, you know, being able to be connected to my dragon, because I feel like, for one, it's opened my mind, you know, believing in, you know, something like that. So people say, you know, dragons, well, there's no evidence, you know, about dragons. Well, actually, there is tons of evidence if you just do a little research. I mean, first of all, if you can find it in the Bible, you know, if you look around, you'll find there are stories of dragons in there. And then also you'll find them on cave paintings. You'll find them in different mythologies. You'll find them all over the world, like we've been talking about. I mean, from one side of the world to the other side of the world. And so the one thing it really has, it's opened my mind, you know, and the healing that it's brought. Because, you know, like I'd hurt my back, and I put a lot of healing. Brett knows about it. I had hurt my back recently, and it hurt so bad that I almost couldn't breathe. It was taking my breath away. And I just kept calling upon, I called upon the angels, of course, for healing, but I also really called upon the red dragon. And it was just like, this is not a good timing for me to be able to do this. Can I please get healed? So there's another, you know, cool thing, and something that I treasure is having that connection and being able to call out to something that's bigger than you. How about you?
I mean, I just found it just an incredible experience, and the more I've gone into myself, and you know, like meditation is something that's, you know, meditation is a lot of where this stuff's happened for me, you know, and it was something I always was intrigued with, and it's kind of like that, you know, the installation or the, you know, the group conformity, that's woo woo, you know, blokes don't meditate, go to the pub, don't feel emotions. But when I finally opened up, and I'd always intrigued, and when finally got the chance to intrigue with that, the experiences I've had and the spiritual experience with going within and connecting without is incredible. So I think when I saw that dragon, it was just mind blowing, you know, it opened my mind up to how big and how powerful and how beautiful and how fractal the universe is. And the thinking on Earth through group conformity of the ape species in our DNA has been so closed off, and you know, and it just opened my mind to, you know what, it's a big universe, you know, and I look at not only our planet but our solar system, even our galaxy, as a grain of sand on an infinite beach. And we're just seeing it from this tiny perspective. And not only that, they've programmed our thinking, our minds, our self-limiting belief. That ain't true, that ain't true, that ain't true. Get your vaccine, you know what I mean? It's like, but now my mind, it opened my mind, because I saw a dragon, a golden dragon, through meditation, and it was clear as day. And I had an emotional connection to this being. And that's beautiful, you know, that's just beautiful. So I would say the most profound thing for me is it just, again, just shows me how beautiful and amazing this universe is. And we're heading into a time now when if you've got an open heart, you've got an open mind, and you've got open arms, and you're willing to put in some self-work, to work on your shadows, to work on your healing, to work on yourself, to connect and put it out there, to connect to these beings, you can meet these beings. And I would say that's only going to intensify over the up and coming times. So that would probably be the main, you know, the main thing for me was just I'm always been an open guy. I've been in that weird vibe where I get told that I question it, you know, and I've always been this conspiracy guy, and I love looking into like the, you know, the JFK stuff that happened, and I love looking into the ET stuff. I've had experiences through my life, and but that really did just kind of open my mind to, you know what, you know, there's a big universe out there. Don't be so quick to close your mind off. You know, have an open mind to these things, look into these things. And like you said, man, like doing the research into the dragons again, it's something I hadn't really been deep into. I believe I'd heard little bits, but the more I researched, I was down them rabbit holes, man. I was yee-hawing on the rabbits, like, come on, let's go deeper, because this is just fascinating, you know. And it does lead back into the most ancient texts and stories. And like you said, these countries, sometimes they're hundreds or thousands of years apart, they're totally miles apart, but they're speaking about the same beings. And again, is it that far-fetched? We've seen the bones of dinosaurs. I mean, it's not that far-fetched, really. I mean, some people might find the ETs more far-fetched, because a dragon, in a sense, is a dinosaur with blooming wings, you know? It's not that far-fetched, you know? So that'd be my thoughts on that one, brother.
Yeah, that's one thing too that I always like to point out, because the people that are scared of dragons and they're like, that's dark. Well, and I've tried to explain that too, is you carry darkness with you all the time. I mean, you have a shadow. And so if you hold your shadow on the table even, and the further you hold it away, if you look down, you'll see your shadow gets bigger and bigger. So the further you try to get away from it, your shadow is going to get bigger. The darkness is going to get bigger. Now you bring your hand closer and closer, you start to see the darkness is gone, is once you become whole with it and you're okay with it, the darkness is gone. There is no darkness. So that's when you can let go that dragons aren't bad, because so many people like Brett and I are coming out here. My wife Jackie has a good experience. We have several other people that have great experiences with the dragon. It's not dark. Push that dark away. And what do you have? Wholeness. So if you have that wholeness with a dragon even, you can start to open up your mind to, like Brett says about, we have alien species that are out there. You can open your mind and not be scared of them, and they can start to communicate. Some people, hey, why don't they communicate with me? Maybe because you still have that little bit of fear that you need to let go of that fear. Because, I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to die? Well, we're going to die anyway. Why wouldn't you rather take a chance of knowing and being able to talk to them, and you find out that they are kind and they are trying to heal you and they are trying to heal the world? And that's what they were here doing before. A long time ago when the dragons were here, that's what they were doing. Like we talk about, so many cultures talk about how they did healing. They protected healing water, healing lands. I mean, I don't find that dragons, in most cases were bad, but yeah, of course you have your bad dragons. They wanted to eat you. I wouldn't just walk up to any old dragon and be like, hey, how you doing today, buddy? And take a chance that he eat me. No, I'm good. I'm not saying that. But there's also the Ohio one. And I thought I might as well jump into the Ohio one really quick. So even a president talked about the Ohio serpent mounds, and it was Abraham Lincoln that talked about it. He did a speech at Niagara Falls, and he had mentioned the serpent mounds, and he said in that speech that it came from, you would see it from a giant's point of view. And so if you were up high, you would definitely see the serpent and the mound. So the cool part, Brett, that I'm going to get to is there was an archaeological dig there. And on that dig, they found Native American remains. They found remains of giants that were 7 foot to 12 foot tall. And then they also found gold and copper, and they found weapons. And the other thing that's cool, Brett, is when they found these 12-foot bodies, they had a 6th digit, but the 6th digit was removed. For some weird reason, it was cut off. And Jackie and I had went over this a couple times. Why would have it been removed? Because it's not like somebody killed them and put them there and removed their thumb. It would be more like they gave it as an offering, because that's a piece of you. What more, how much more sacred are you going to get than giving that special piece of you, that extra piece of you? You give it to them. You're showing your love. You're showing, your sacrifice that you're giving, so.
Well, I've got to jump on that, because that could be some kind of sacrifice given, or it could be like a relic that is taken. So when someone's got an extra finger, it's like there's certain speaks in the Bible where belly buttons, foreskins, stuff was taken. They might have taken that because it holds power, so that might have been taken. But I'd like to jump on something else you said about the malevolent and benevolent. And we are, in this version of the universe, well, number one, it is a universe of polarity, positive and negative. duality, which allows these experiences. So the dark does exist. So we can't say that all dragons were nice. The same as, you know, take a walk out on planet Earth. You know, you're going to see a few humans that aren't great. And some people do, and some beings on here do resonate. So this field does exist. And I love what you said about the shadows, because shadows are just illusions, really. It's just a shadow. And what I was saying earlier was like, this version of the universe is a kind of like a hologram in the sense that everything gives off photons of light. And if we could see the full spectrum, if our eyes now, we could in tune to the full spectrum of this universe, you would never see any darkness, actually. Even in the shadows, you wouldn't see any darkness. So darkness is kind of an illusion for experience, but it's very good for soul experience to learn the polarity and duality, you know, to go through this, because a lot of the higher frequential beings they speak about, the ones that made these pyramids and these previous cycles, they seem to have been created into the universe on a higher polarity. And maybe that's why we have to go for these lessons, because they seem to battle, or they had no respect or love to what they are, or love or respect for each other. So I think it's very important for a soul experience, for the soul journey, is to be on a place like Earth, where we do have these dark times. And well, no one can deny that the last cycle of the history we know and what people have been through on Earth has been pretty dark time, but we can gain a lot of wisdom and knowledge from that. But yeah, I mean, the giants, the Smithsonian, right? I mean, the British Museum, you know, they found these giant bones. And, you know, and actually, I just want to give a quick shout out, actually, because I see my Nan's here. So hello, Nan. And my Nan, she showed me so many pictures of the Aztec, and they were sat on these little things. She showed me the face on Mars when I was a kid, so she's definitely had a huge part of my interest and intrigueness of this kind of stuff. So love you, darling. Let's give you that. She's got to have some. There's the heart. It's not working, Scotty. They're not letting me heart my Nan. There you go. So hello, Nan. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, I love what you're saying, man. And I would say though, you know, that probably was kind of malevolent side to that. But also, like I said, that might have been a dip in frequency, and we seem to go through a real dark age with them, especially the Roman Catholic time. And you know, a lot of the things they in place, they may have shut off these energy centers, and the human consciousness seemed to drop into this dark age, for sure. From, you know, from at some point of the ancient Greeks, they were very enlightened beings, and it seemed to drop down into the Roman times, and then humans went through this crazy time of battling each other. And that it might be like a dip in frequency. It was less energetic, so just naturally frequency is just a vibrating lower, you know, so they call that dark age. And that highly might have affected the consciousness of the other. Well, it would have done, it would have affected the consciousness here. And that might be why these dragons then, one side was the humans were on a lower consciousness, but also the dragons maybe dropped, and you know, and we wiped them out maybe. So I just wanted to add that, brother.
Yeah, we're coming up to we have a last question over here too, but I see Joshua's in here, and I remember Joshua last time you said that you liked my Smeagol, so I wanted to give you a special shout out. And
Hi, Joshua. My precious Joshua. You made it. We're so happy you were here. Thank you.
Man, I just love your impressions, man. I mean, you got to do Hank Hill, man. You got to do a Hank Hill quick for me.
Well, god dang it, Brett, what in the hell you making me do all my god dang voices for, boy? Yep, I'll tell you boys what, if I was a dragon, I would be, let's see, I would be shooting propane out my mouth, yep. It'd probably be trickling propane at that fact. My goodness. Well, hi there, sweetheart. Yep, my name's Hank. How's everybody doing? God dang it.
Say hello, Hank.
How you doing? God dang it.
That's my little baby dragon, Skylar.
Well, that's a nice looking dragon. That's not a bad dragon there, is it?
Yeah, I love your voices, man. That is brilliant. Thank you. One more question you said, Scotty? What's that then?
Now I have a question for you, Brett. We got a special question. It's a big question. Can you handle it, bro? Because it's a big freaking question. I mean, if your mind can wrap around this, I will tell you about it. Does she want to see me talk this way? Hi. How you doing? So good to see you, sweetheart. I see your heart. I swallowed a balloon. That's what happened to my voice.
Oh, fantastic, Scotty. They love that. They want to come and say hello quick.
I thought I'd throw some voices out there for them. So let's see. This goes out to the Ramblers too. So this is a question for everybody that's out there too, right?
It's just for the Ramblers.
Oh, this is just for the Ramblers. So what's your dragon story and how has it shaped your life? And then maybe you wouldn't mind sharing tomorrow we're going to do a scramble ramble, and hopefully we can get you guys to come on live and share your dragon experiences. Maybe you want to come on live with Brett and I, and just give a quick shout out. You don't have to stay very long, but we'd love it if you want to come on to our scramble ramble and tell us about how maybe you're connected to dragons, or maybe you would like to tell the world, about your dragon experience, or maybe even if you just feel dragons, we'd love to hear you. And, I'm sure Brett would like to comment on that to see if you guys would come.
Well, I had like a strong message to create this scramble ramble, and we're a round table and we want to bring people on and share your experiences. So that may be something you've experienced through dragon or some kind of experience you've had. But even if we've missed some stuff out that you find interesting on the history or the myths or the stories, anything, man, we're just asking to come on tomorrow, jump on the live. We'll try and grab a few people on, because we are a round table and it's all about the community, and it's all about us joining together, bringing our energies and tension and love, perspectives all together. So anyone that wants to come and join us tomorrow night, you are more than welcome. Put your hand up on there. You can share a dragon story. You can share a story we might have missed, some wisdom, some knowledge, or even just your perspective on the dragons, even if the dragons aren't real, because the round table, every perspective is welcome. So please come and join us tomorrow.
Joshua said he's going to try.
Right on, Joshua. Yeah, we hope you make it, brother.
That would be so precious to see you there. No, it wouldn't. Yes, it would. No, Joshua is bad. No, Master is good.
I thought I'd throw that one at you, Joshua. So I really wanted to say, and Brett, speak on behalf of Jackie, Brett, and myself, and our other administration. We really want to thank you guys and thank the moderators. We want to thank the administration. We want to thank everybody, and make sure that everybody that's on here, if you heard us, also go over and sign up at Cosmic Disclosure Alliance. Great group over there too. Great group of folks. So open-minded, and that's where you can also find Emery and Darla's Nano Blue and Nano Green. Also wanted to give a shout out to Brother Glenn. You can find his at divinephoenix.com. So make sure you go there. And he has the pink serum. And the pink serum, to some people that say, Jackie had wanted me to remind everybody about this one, was that Glenn actually has a serum, and it is to help with meditation. So that might be another way that might help you, is by, getting his serum, and that might help you connect with your dragon spirit. Right on. You like that, brother? Yeah, Jackie came up with that, and that was great to remind people about that, because he does have something that will help you with your meditation and seeing your dragons, or seeing, some people want to see, ETs. So this will help you, it's a way to guide you through it. So yeah, that's divinephoenix.com. So make sure you go over to Glenn's there too. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that Brett and I had talked about it, and Jackie, and we thought about for our next live, we will be discussing Vikings. So, Skull!
Yeah, we'll be talking the Vikings as a civilization, of course, the wonderful myths that come along with that, and their stories of Odin, and of course the great blonde-haired Thor, and the trickster Loki. So this should be a very interesting one, and yeah, that'll be in a couple of weeks actually, because it won't be next week; it'll be the week after. So in 2 weeks' time on the Saturday. And if the Scramble Ramble goes well and people do want to come in and share their perspectives, then we'll probably do another Scramble Ramble about that, and people can add and share their perspectives as well. So just a quick shout out to everyone that's come and watched us. Of course, the Cosmic Alliance, which is another group we've just started. Please join that. It has great energy there. It's all to do with the disclosure, the raising in consciousness, the awakening that's going on. It's already growing rapidly, so please come and join that and be a part of that. It's the most amazing team. And yeah, just thank you for joining us around the round table. And hopefully some of you may be inspired to come and join us tomorrow for our Scramble Ramble. Much love, guys.
I got one last joke for you. Don't you go nowhere yet. I got another joke for you. Why did the dragon go to the doctor? Because his throat was on fire. When you have a burning throat, you go to the doctor. My goodness there, lassie.
I stay away from them doctors, mate, personally.
Yeah, I suggest go get some tea or maybe some water. All right, everybody. It was so awesome. Thank you all for joining us. We love you and appreciate you all so much. And yeah, keep rambling, ramblers. Ramble on, ramble on.